Hey, my name is Jen Agosta, and I'm a designer at Kilograph. This week on Live from the Digital Frontier, we want to talk about design used in activism and protest. Design has been an instrumental tool of communication in activism and protest really since the dawn of activism. Graphic design gives our messages a visual language where its creators are forced to focus and choose their words carefully, and through that be able to speak with impact and convey message and emotion and meaning. And design of everything has always been a way of cropping out the noisy world and bringing into focus a singular message. I know I'm not alone in feeling a deep connection to the use of word and image to convey a point. The use of graphic design in protest, I'm sure, was born out of an urgency to communicate a message with impact. I love it because it's strategic, and it's with purpose, and it's with passion. Strategic design is design that solves a problem or communicates an idea. Really effective design is design that makes the viewer think. And really powerful design is design that takes a risk. And design used for protest and activism really involves all three of these things. The design and art we see coming out of times of activism and protest is so pregnant with power and loaded with meaning that it tends to resonate with people in a way that can enlighten, can infuriate, can excite, break hearts, unite people. The design of protest is for anyone and everyone. It is the art of the people. And it's not just the artwork itself, it's the collaborative work of movements that are themselves a beautiful design. An example of this is the art of the people. I saw a girl at the Women's March. She was holding a homemade sign that said, "My voice is the future." She was probably 6 years old, and to see her little handmade sign next to the posters that the well-known artist Shepard Fairey had created and distributed for free helps to paint a more full picture of a landscape of people coming together to express a shared vision. Design as a tool of communication in activism and protest has been around since the dawn of activism, but the digital frontier has certainly given it a new stage and a new set of creation tools. And what is interesting to see is, speaking on history, is to see imagery being reused almost as though over time we develop a visual vernacular that helps us continue to understand complex topics. One example of that is the fist of resistance and the resistance to oppression and solidarity with your community. And history has seen that fist in numerous movements such as the Arab Spring to the Women's March to Black Lives Matter. Another example of the reuse of a concept through history is the movement by ACT UP, the organization that was fighting for AIDS research, and their protest signs would read, "Silence equals death," very simply. And to see imagery now in the Black Lives Matter movement as well, to see that reuse of the same message, but in this case it's white silence equals death. And to see that repeated message reapplied, but with the same concept, almost loads it with more power. From a design standpoint, that idea of a math equation is really powerful to really help to understand a concept that seems very complex, but it's actually quite simple. And while we think of activism and protest sometimes as these isolated moments, a storm of people coming together bound by a collective energy that is compressed into a defined moment in time, Some people do dedicate their lives to activism and to protest, and in that, some artists dedicate their practice to activism and protest. There's some very powerful work out there by artists such as Barbara Kruger that has proliferated really powerful messaging that has to do with the protest and the activism that happens in everyday life for some people. There are a lot of factors right now that could lead to some very creative activism. In a time where we're increasingly using succinct symbolism to explain ideas, it is interesting to anticipate new forms of visual activism and protest. And it really goes beyond the medium itself. It's also our ability to communicate it and to communicate with so many people instantaneously. And that's not only to share ideas, but it's also to organize a front. That collaborative work that we do is really a signifier of the digital frontier. Really, it has to do with our ability to collaborate, and it's the collective consciousness that has become the defining movement of this new digital frontier. And some really creative examples, thinking about the Paris climate meetings and the 11,000 pairs of shoes that were left when demonstrators could not come together because of the recent terrorist attacks. They wanted their voice to be heard, so instead of their bodies being present, they placed pairs of shoes as a representation of their participation in seeing action. And something like that it's creative problem solving. And right now in this moment where we're not able to come together because of a global health concern, I'm very excited to see the creative problem solving that happens when people want to not only express themselves, but also when they want to collaborate and they want to get together, because a problem like this is really ripe for a very, very creative solution. And I'm really excited to see more of what that becomes.